Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the organised private sector have called for the immediate reversal of the hike in the pump prices of premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL. Well, retail stations of NNPC raised the price of petrol to 1,030 naira from 897 naira per litre in Abuja, and in Lagos it was hiked to 998 naira per litre from 868 naira per litre. Other locations witnessed similar price hikes, a development that triggered anger among Nigerians. Following the latest hike in the pump price of petrol, the trade union Congress is asking the federal government to facilitate a reduction in the petrol pricing regime. Now, at a media briefing in Abuja, the TUC President Festus Osifo submitted that the government's intervention in the cost of production will eventually crash the product's price. Joining us now is Comrade Ajaero, President of the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and he's joined by Kelvin Emmanuel, an economist. Good morning to you both, gentlemen. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Comrade, are you there with us? Comrade Ajaero?
Yeah, I'm here, live.
Okay, good morning. Well, Comrade Ajaero.
I'm here with you.
Comrade Ajaero, let us start with you. You were at an event when, you learned about this latest development and you condemned it. You accused government of not doing anything about compressed natural gas, which is not exactly true. They claim they've been doing something. And then you talked about the new national minimum wage. But many of the persons who took your reaction said, why is Comrade talking like this? They expected you to say Labour will go on strike and defend the interests of Nigerians, and that you were too soft on the government in the face of the hardship that the people are facing. If you may like to clarify your initial reaction and why Labour is just also accepting that, well, this is the way it is, this is the way it is. And for you, Kelvin Emmanuel, well, at the bottom of all of this is whether government should provide subsidy or not. Government spokespersons are quoting the Petroleum Industry Act. There are persons who are saying, well, it's not a fashion in many countries of the world that you say there is no subsidy for the people and that hardship is good for them and that they should be patient. And in fact, after 2-3 months, things will improve. What do you see in your crystal ball as an economist, where all of this would end? But let's start with Comrade Ajaero first, NSC President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abati. I stand by my initial comments about the issue of CNG. In June 2023, that was the first time we had conversation on this CNG with the government. Immediately after the announcement of the subsidy is gone. And we agreed that CNG should be a better alternative to PMS. And we agreed to start work immediately on it. From the labor movement, we spoke with some experts who agreed even to enter into conversion of vehicles immediately. And we were to reach almost 3 million vehicles within the first 3 months. And government said no. Why those ones were asking for 300 and something for conversion? When we met with government team, they were talking of about 800,000. And that derailed the process. And between that time and now, government has procured some vehicles. NLC took delivery of about 14 vehicles last week. And the vehicles are packed in the office now. And I said at that conversation that when a vehicle that is supposed to use CNG, there's no station to fill it, that vehicle is as good as a carton. And I stand by it. So is it getting CNG vehicles? Even before they procure those CNG vehicles, many stations would have been able to refill the vehicles as they are coming in. So that's the frustration we have now. As NLC, we have taken delivery of about 14 buses, some of them 15-seater buses, and then they announced 20, so we are still expecting them to bring the remaining. Now, on the issue, you said I didn't announce that NLC will go on strike. Every organization will have their modus operandi. And the NLC president at no time will have right or power to say there will be strike tomorrow. Now we have our own initial and administrative processes of convening a meeting at the nearest possible time where decision on the next line of action will be taken. No NLC president will come out and say, we are going to start strike tomorrow or next tomorrow without the organs meeting. In most instances, either the CWC or the NEC. So, and we are following that process.
Okay. So what's next? Have you started the consultations in-house among the others?
Latest next week, we should be able to meet and have conversation around this, so that the personal view of the leader, does not becloud the position of the members.
It's okay. Just that Nigerians are now very skeptical about organized labor. They will say you people will call strike for 1 week, then you will have meetings at night with government, and then we will not hear anything again. Anyway, let me come to you, Kelvin Emmanuel. What do you think about the subsidy regime and how it's been handled, and whether hardship is a better alternative to subsidy for Nigerians?
Dr. Abati, thank you so much. Good morning. I first of all want to reply quickly to what Dr. Joe Ajaero said, the president of the NLC, before I respond to the question you asked. He said something very striking. He said the government delivered 14 CNG vehicles last week, but where are the stations? And the vehicles are as good as carton. And this is what I've always said about the presidential CNG initiative. There is a lack of infrastructure. There is gas to power, there's gas to transport. Gas to power is gaining traction. But gas to transport is different. And the reason why gas to transport is different is because you need mother and daughter stations across Nigeria. Because if the utility of petrol or diesel is that you can drive into any petrol station around Nigeria. It's not the same for CNG. If you're traveling interstate, how do you fill your car?
Hello? Hello, Kelvin? Well, we seem to have lost connection with Kelvin. Maybe we'll continue with Comrade Ajaero. All
right, Comrade Ajaero, I'll come to you now. So, some of the criticisms that yourself and the Nigeria Labour Congress are coming under are around implementation of minimum wage. But before we touch on that, I do believe that Kelvin Emmanuel is back, so we'll allow him to complete his train of thought before we come back to you. Kelvin, please do go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. You can proceed.
Okay. I said you don't have high-pressure transmission pipes around Nigeria to deliver gas. There's also the problem of willing producers' price part versus government-regulated price part for gas pricing midstream and upstream. That is making you have low pressure on pipes for delivering gas to gas-based industries. These are the issues that the government needs to tackle at an institutional level. And that's the reason why I've always said that the presidential CNG initiative is putting the cars before the horse, and it's not going to work because the fundamentals are wrong. Okay, over to the question you asked about subsidy, Dr. Abati. Look, from 2001, Nigeria's daily consumption has gone up from 21 million liters per day to 70 million liters per day. Between 2001 and 2010, that number went from 21 to 29 million. I refuse to believe, and I've always said it, I refuse to believe the government when they say that the numbers from 2010 jumped from 29.1 million liters per day to 70 million liters per day. There's no empirical evidence to show. What I expect the NLC to ask Mr. President, when they meet him in person, is let the government provide empirical evidence to justify the subsidy it's paying on 55 to 70 million liters per day, because there's no evidence to show. If you can find a true north for the daily consumption of Nigeria, which in my estimate is not more than 35 million liters per day, the government will be able to understand how it can apply an under-recovery. And to the issue about petrol price, yeah, the sticking point here has been the exchange rate. We've seen that between 2014 and 2024, the government deviated from revenue. In its medium-term expenditure framework, it deviated to debt. And if you see, the deficits went at the same time from 16%, it went to 52%. Today, the debt to GDP ratio is 52%, 12% higher than the fiscal responsibility ratio of 40%, which is the crisis level. The government is borrowing more money to fund its budget. Yeah, and because it's borrowing more money to fund its budget, it had the CBN, the past governor of the CBN, tap ways and means. It increased CRR. It created money that didn't exist, 17.3 trillion, not backed by any assets and reserves, and that led to devaluation and depreciation of the naira. So when you consider the fact that your fuel importation is linked to your exchange rate, you see why the price of PMS has gone from under 200 naira per liter within the last 5-6 years. It's gone to 1,000 naira per liter. So these are the issues. And then we have to come back to the fact that today as we speak, the ex-refinery price for the Dangote refinery is actually cheaper than the cost of importing substandard PMS into Nigeria. These are realities that the NLC needs to face. And these are the questions they need to ask the president one-on-one when they meet with him.
All right, Kelvin, I'm so glad you're talking about the price from the Dangote refinery, because it seems to remain a huge mystery to the public. So what is that price? Because you seem to have a little bit of insight into that. What is that price? And what is this allegation coming from Ipman, as Ipman is saying that despite reports that NNPC is no longer the sole off-taker of fuel from the Dangote refinery, that Ipman is still having to buy from NNPC at an inflated rate. That's your question. And then to you, Comrade Joe Ajaero, what I'd started saying earlier was the fact that you started on the mission, Comrade Joe Ajaero, you started on the mission of a new minimum wage. An agreement was reached. However, the criticism is that this minimum wage is yet to be implemented. Now, you haven't seen that process to completion. What foot do you feel you have to stand on to demand the cancellation of the fuel price hike if something as simple as implementing minimum wage is something that you have not been able to see through to fruition? So, Comrade Joe Ajaero, your take on that?
Well, if I tell you I understood the question very well, I think I'm mistaken. However,
okay, let me rephrase. I'll rephrase it for you. What I'm asking you is that the minimum wage has not been implemented widely. So if you cannot ensure that the minimum wage that you negotiated has been implemented, what power do you feel you have to have the government or the powers that be revoke the price increase of fuel as you are demanding?
I think the question shouldn't have been the power I have, because the minimum wage has been signed into law. And minimum wage, they have started implementation in various places. And now the issue is to make sure that it is religiously implemented. However, even if the minimum wage has not been implemented, now, bringing up issues like increase in pump price of petroleum products, which will be inimical to the substance of the minimum wage, needs to be fought, even before the implementation of minimum wage. So there's no ambiguity there. If we agreed on a minimum wage when petroleum was being sold at 700, and before it is implemented, like you said, it is now 1,000 something. It is a question of having two logs of wood on the ground. You have to remove the one on top before the one next to it. So we have every power, the way we had power, to equally agree on minimum wage. To say that this new distraction or this new imposition will affect the minimum wage if it must be 70,000. And that is the course of action we're about taking.
Okay, thank you. Kelvin, the price of fuel ex-Dangote, you seem to have a little bit of insight on this. What is that and the back and forth?
So I'll tell you, if you go and you ask the Dangote refinery for quotes on ATK, Jet A1, on diesel, AGO, automotive gasoline oil, they'll give you a quote. For PMS, NNPC has not put out an official statement in line with sections 205 of the PIA that says that we're effectively deregulating downstream for PMS. They haven't. Until that is done, the Dangote refinery cannot give you a pricing template or framework because the government currently regulates the price of PMS in Nigeria. That has not been done. There are rumors, and for goodness sake, I don't know why it's difficult for the State House to direct NNPC to put out a press release if it's going through proxies that, look, we've actually deregulated the market, it's a willing buyer, willing seller market, and everybody should go and find his level. They've not done that. Now, I'll give you a hint. Yeah? Look, when you're looking about the pricing framework for PMS, you have the Platts system, which is priced in US dollar. Dangote does not have control over the Platts system because that is mostly determined by the fluctuations in the price of crude oil. Yeah? You have the premium, which is added based on the grade of gasoline that is being refined, and that is determined by sulfur level, flash points, and the octane level. Yeah? You have other costs that are built in. Now, you have to understand that Nigeria doesn't have pipeline infrastructure to evacuate PMS around the country. Atlas Cove and Musimi are moribund. They are not functional. So if you want to take PMS from Dangote, for example, you're either taking through a shuttle vessel or you're taking through the gantry, which are the trucks. Okay? There are costs attached to that. You have the fact that NNPC does not have the cash to buy PMS from Dangote, and it has to go to a bank to get an LC, and NNPC pass that LC financing costs to the consumers. You have shuttle, you have bulk storage terminal costs, you have demurrage costs, you have NMDPRA charge, you have inspection fee, yeah? You have distribution, and then you have margin. All these are costs that the government has built. That's why I said that the ex-refinery price from the Dangote refinery is actually cheaper and better, considering that its grade of gasoline is way better than the substandard PMS that is being imported into Nigeria, that doesn't go through proper regulatory checks and doesn't meet up with the regulatory framework.
Okay, Kevin, I'll give you some numbers. And the numbers came out of the fight, and I pretty much, align with some of the things you said. IPMA was claiming yesterday that they bought from the over 700 threshold from Dangote. That in fact, some members of another association, the Energy, Traders Association, are still buying at that price because they didn't finish their evacuation of product. They're still going to do that for the next 2 weeks. That was the initial price first touted that NNPC now released another template that took the price up to 8 something. That pricing template NNPC released, Dangote said, no, that was not our pricing template. That pricing template included the Platts system, which came down to about 52 cents. Then you had inspection fee, you had margin fee, you had NNDPR fee, and you had other fees in it. And transportation fee, gantry fee, and all of that. But Dangote said, no, that was not our pricing. So IPMAN is saying they got it from about 700 and something. And that's why now they are kicking against the NNPC that how can we still be loading from Dangote currently at about 7 something, and you are now saying that we should buy from you at about 1,000 something. My question is,
Rufai, I'll tell you the game and okay, sorry.
Where are we going to understand this conundrum? That's my first question to you. My second question.
I'll tell you the game.
I'm still asking the question, please. The first question is, when are we going to understand the conundrum? My second question is, correct me if I'm wrong on this. It looks as though subsidy has not still been pulled out and games are being played somewhere, which we do not know. I'll come to you, Mr. Ajaero, by asking and saying, please, did President Tinubu deceive Labour by telling you people that if you accepted the 70,000 minimum wage, he will not increase fuel price? Was there any time you people had conversations and you were talking about the 250, and he said that if he had increased it to about 250 minimum wage, he would definitely increase fuel price? So do you feel betrayed now that fuel prices have gone up despite the fact that you agreed at 70,000 for not an increase in the fuel price? Kevin, I'll come to you first, then Mr. Ajaero, I'll come to you afterwards on that question.
Rufai, thank you very much. A very important question you asked. I'll tell you the game NNPC is playing. NNPC says they are the sole buyer to the Dangote refinery because, of course, they are the state oil company in Nigeria. Now, NNPC is making a profit on the stock that they sell to the marketers, independent marketers. And I dare tell you that at the rate they are selling to independent marketers, they are not only making a profit, they are not paying any subsidy on that rate. Okay? And that if we follow the Dangote refinery template, right, Nigeria will be saving 471 billion naira every month in payments that would have gone into subsidy. For you to get an idea of what the ex-refinery price is, which is where Dangote is responsible, look at the Platt system. Today, you have anywhere between $680 and $700 per metric ton. 1 metric ton of PMS is 1,341 liters. You simply take $700, divide it by 1,341, you will get a raw ex-refinery price. You add the premium, anywhere between $40 and $80, divide it by 1,341 liters, add it to the Platts, and you get the ex-refinery price for PMS from the Dangote refinery. It's not the fault of Aliko that NNPC does not have cash to pay, and they have to go to bank to raise an LC. And the financing cost of about $28 per metric ton has to be passed to the consumer. It's not the fault of Alaji that you have bulk storage terminal fee, you have shuttle fee because there's no pipeline infrastructure to evacuate PMS around Nigeria. It's not the fault of Dangote that the government has built in NMDPRA fee, it has built in distribution, it has built in inspection fee. It's not his fault. So when you look at this template, you understand that NNPC is trying to eat his cake and have it back. It wants to be the sole buyer, selling to the marketers at a profit, and is refusing them to go directly to the refinery. It doesn't want to deregulate the market. Port Harcourt refinery turnaround maintenance has failed. Yeah? Okay. And then last month, it imported 1 billion liters of PMS or 814,000 metric tons of PMS. And it has booked cargoes until December of 2024. It's not the fault of Dangote.
Okay. Thank you so much. And it has booked cargoes. That means there's still an element of a subsidy in the mix that nobody's telling us. Mr. Ajaero, please, the question I asked you is this. Did the president betray the trust of the NLC in those negotiations?
Narrate the scenario to you, and then we now choose the appropriate word, whether betray, deceive, or whatever. While we were discussing, because we estimated at 62,000 naira, even the states were saying they won't pay, so there was a statement that took us to Mr. President. And we insisted on 250. And Mr. President, at the meeting, turned to me and said, Ajaero, you are the person holding my hand from increasing further. I said, increase what? He said, since I said subsidy is gone, we should have gotten the appropriate price. We should have increased. I want to sponsor you people, labor, to travel to these West African countries and know how much they are paying. Some are paying 2,000, 18, 17. He announced it. And we declined immediately that we are not going to take that sponsorship. He said, okay, I will go to my office for 1 hour. You guys decide. If you agree for me to increase, I'll pay you 250. If not, you take the 62. He stood up and we said, Mr. President, no, we can't sit down here to decide in your office. We'll take about 1 week to go back and discuss and get back to you, which was exactly what happened. Ask anybody who adjourned for 1 week. He said, oh, I'm supposed to travel, but because of you, I will cancel my trip until after 1 week. And when we, reconvened, we were clear to Mr. President that we didn't have any mandate to come here to discuss the price of a petroleum product or increase. We're only here, to discuss minimum wage. And minimum wage alone is what we're going to discuss. And we agreed on the basis of that, we accepted 70,000.
So when you accepted 70,000...
So Dr. Abati...
Then the president went back to increase on the price.
We have to go now. Comrade, I would like to thank you very much for joining us, Comrade Joe Ajaero, and also Kelvin Emmanuel for your time.